With those.
What?
Do you like the ones with the plastic thing?
It's not a question I like it. It's easier to open in a smaller space.
Oh, I see. Because it folds over.
The other one falls over and you have more room.
Can I just ask David Babinett, you weren't interested in what I spoke to you about?
It's not that. I just didn't have time to come.
So it's still outside as far as I know.
Okay, maybe I'll drive by on the way home. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
All right.
So are we okay now with Seichel being Shefa?
Seichel being Shefa. I guess. I mean, that was from this morning. That was certainly helpful. I think I had to modify my ideas about what Shefa was. You made the comment, don't physicalize things too much, as well as modify or look into what is Seichel. But it's still interesting. It's still quite a wondrous situation there, where the and I reviewed the class from this morning. And the one time to really hit the nail on the head, he said was in response to Yehuda's comment. Oh, so this is how the Mashpia wakes up the student. So, I'm getting the sense of this is Seichel of such impact that it's the way for us, the mashal for that is like, pinching someone, waking them up. So that's
No, did I say pinching?
no, but we had when you had the
Punching. I said punching.
Yeah, punching is better than pinching. I'm not saying it's a good marshal, but if you're gonna do pinch, you might as well do a punch.
this wake up that is has such an impact.
You use a glove or with gloveless?
Cold water.
Glove is better for the hand.
A bucket of ice cold water.
No, I don't know what you're referring to. What you mean to wake up? Not. If anything of it, you may be referring to what I explained, that the Chitzonistic representation is only a means to be able to get into it. That's not the Seichel. That's the Keli to which you enter it. To get into the boat, the point of the boat is that the boat should then float on the water, not that you should sit in the boat.
Right. Yeah.
This is different than like the usual conversation we have about like the functionality aspect and the essential aspect.
No, it's not.
Okay.
The point is that in Seichel it's difficult to recognize. This is what these three words over here, point out. It's very difficult to recognize there is an essential aspect. It seems like you're only giving it for some functionality aspect. Only presenting the tangible, logical any element. So then it's not a shepherd.
So contained in that seichel is something of such essence that it impacts, it's not just it's not. Yeah.
The Rav, to give over seichel, cannot be sitting with one leg over the other and smoking a pipe and looking at the sky and just talking out of the blue. That way he's not going to impart any seichel. He has to be focused, has to be involved personally, and actually live it through in order to give the seichel. Why? Because he's giving something of essence. And of his essence, of his seichel.
And that's what makes a shefa, not a ha'ara. That
Right.
element of involvement or
That is not what makes it shefa. That is what shows that it is shefa.
that's what shows that I guess right. I guess like I said at the outset, I just recall learning so clearly this Indian of that seichel is Yehud Ruchni, and at most there's this Indian of Hakika, and that's
Yeah. It is Yichud Ruchni. It's not Yichud Gufni, which is a completely different thing. But nevertheless, and it still has. That's what it still has an element of shefa.
Okay.
That's why I said that there are three different mishalim over here. Each mashal is more ruchni than the other.
the flowing river, the hand that throws a stone,
No, not the hand that's on the stone. The
fly
koya
of
that
stone,
flies us, yeah.
koyach of
The flying of stone, and it's a seichel. I suppose a seichel. Mm-hmm.
How can you use a Rukni Yisdika thing to be a mashal for something?
What?
You're saying that you're using the idea of hashpah as a metaphor as a mashal for something else? So there are three metaphors.
each more ruchni than the other.
Right. What are these metaphors being used to explain?
They are metaphor. They're examples of shefa.
Oh, examples of shefa.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the first one. What was the
river,
The river,
stone, and the teacher.
and the teacher to the student? Oh, I see. Three examples of shefa. Three kinds of shefa.
Mm-hmm. All right, I guess we'll continue further. Okay, let's continue. All right, so we are the bottom third of the page, and the line of page with Beis, and the line starts with the word bozeh. So we're explaining now, the immediate focus is to understand the principal difference between what's called oir and shefa. I'm saying there are two means, two types of relationships between between the mashpia and makabel, between the source and the effect. One is shefa, which we discussed, and then oil is on a different level. And the principle that what we pointed out in shefa is that in shefa there is an actual reality, an element of the etzem that is being transmitted. Just like in the water is clearly the etzem, in the stone the koyach is part of the koyach of the hand, and in seichel it is an element of the etzem, the seichel horav. Avol oir, but oir is of a different category. Hu ha'ora levad, there is only a ha'ora. She'ein boy ho'etzem, a ha'ora in which there is not the etzem. The etzem is not involved in this hashpah of oir. There is not a piece of the etzem involved in this hashpah. K'moi, as for example, oir v'ziv hashemesh, but we have the light of the shemesh. So when the shemesh gives off light, she'ein mugdar or mutar bozeh, where the shemesh, the sun, is not bounded and is not preoccupied in this activity of giving off light.
Rabbi Paltiel?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I lost focus and didn't remember that I wanted to ask you this question.
Okay.
Going back to, but it goes back to Shefa. So maybe you already answered this.
Go ahead.
Is there, after what you said about that the Rav is giving Guf Oris HaSeichel, is there ever Hashpah which is not given? In other words, if what the Rav is giving is not Guf Oris HaSeichel, then this is not really considered Hashpah?
Right. If the Rav is just repeating something that he learned, that he learned and remembers from years ago, and is not currently involved in this seichel, he's not giving a guv ha'oras sichloi.
But it seems as though, to some extent, the guf quality is dependent upon the capacity or the attention or the openness of the mushba, because the Rav. In other words, he's giving him the experience of the reality of this truth. But not every time that you learn from a Rav do you get this experience of the reality of the truth. Does that mean the Rav is not giving the hashpah that you're not seeing? No,
it doesn't mean that. That's what we spoke about the other day, that the only way to receive the seichel is by the openness and by the beetle of the Talmud. And if there isn't that beetle, then he's not going to receive the guv ha'oras hashefa.
Like the dripping of drooling from the mouth.
That's right.
But assuming that the Talmud is, if the Talmud is not doing that, that doesn't mean that the Rav is not giving the guf oras haseichel.
Well, this is what we quoted from the Zohar, remember?
Who's the one?
Apparently not.
The voice is the one who speaks upon unhearing ears.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean that he's not giving the guf oras haseichel.
Well, he is trying to.
Right. So this is always what is involved in hashpah. Is that correct?
If that's what we're trying to, this is always what's involved. He is definitely involved.
And this is why it's so preoccupying and encompassing. Okay, that was really what I wanted to ask.
All right.
What does it mean the shemesh is not mugdor or mutrad bazeh? How is it less occupied in giving this transmission of information than the river? An inanimate river is just flowing.
Okay. So just hold up, okay? So oil b'tiv ha'or is shein b'minhu etzem. Ukmei oil b'ziv ha'shemesh. As in the case of the ziv ha'shemesh. Shein mugdor muter b'zeh. But the shemesh is not bounded by the Indian of giving off the light. The shemesh is whatever the shemesh is. The light comes automatically. Because of what? The metzius of the shemesh is, the light comes automatically. There's a shemesh there, therefore there is light. It is not that the shemesh is actively involved in giving off the light. And this fact that the light is coming off from the shemesh is not affecting any change in the shemesh. So this we discussed the first time. I don't mean the first time around. I mean the first time. Right now we went back to Shemesh, but just a couple of days ago when we first got to these lines. A Rav who is mashpia al udmin lo shomim is in tremendous suffering.
Rav who is given to ears that do not hear.
But the shemesh, that's not. It's not affected whether its light actually reaches any destination or it doesn't. Like it says in the Mashal elsewhere, that if there is clouds that prevent the sunlight to reach the earth, that does not bother the sun at all. It has it's not occupied in accomplishing anything in particular.
The light that comes out of the sun comes from every direction. It goes into every direction.
That's right. He has no. What's the matter?
Should I take the chair from here or from the kitchen?
Either way, whichever you want. You take this.
Looks like there's a vacuum in
Okay. That's right. That's even more so. It doesn't seem to be focused at all. It just goes in every direction. And if it should not reach its destination, it doesn't. It's not affected, and if it reaches its destination, it's not affected. There's no real relationship there. This is one example of oir, of Hashpos oir. but there is truly not any kind of a relationship, so that it is not affected at all by in giving off this light. Now, this is still coming up, but I just want to kind of preempt the question that usually we say, on the contrary, in a certain sense, when the Rav is giving a seichel, he's only giving his seichel. When the hand throws the rock, it's only the koyach of the hand. It's not the entire person. Whereas when the shemesh gives off light, the light is really representative of what the shemesh is. That's what oil is. This is really the definition of shemesh. Shemesh is the essence of light, and therefore there is this light coming out. And yet we say that in light, ein by min ha'etzem.
Yeah.
Small.
I'm sorry.
Try to understand small. Ein by min ha'etzem. What is pshat ein by min ha'etzem? What is meant by ein min ha'etzem? So if you go back to when we were discussing like the throwing of the rock. The throwing of the rock, so we're saying that this is an actual shefa. You put the koyach of the hand into the rock and the rock flies, hepech tivoi. So we explained then that if one walks and hits a rock casually, and the rock flies up, and it flies a certain distance, and it lands and all that, this is not hepech tivoi. You hit a rock, so it flies, it moves. It's not hepech tivoi. What is meant by hepech tivoi?
That it has been imbued with some kind of intention.
Otas. Hepech tivoi is the pshat because the rock it's flying in a certain target, with a certain aim. That is an upwards. There you have put, so to speak, a human aim into this rock. There's an actual preoccupation. He wants to accomplish something and he's accomplishing something. And in order to throw this rock, to hit a certain target, he has to be focused, and he has to, like you said, he has to actually discipline his arm. It's not just the koyach of the arm that throws it. It is the arm along with everything else, all full concentration, that allows it, that carries the rock to its destination. The same thing, even at a much higher level, in the case of seichel. When the Rav is mashpia seichel, he aims that the seichel should reach the Talmud. There is a connection there. He aims that the seichel should reach the Talmud, and if not for that, he would not give the seichel. It's not an automatic thing. That's what shefa. He is giving something of his essence, and putting something of his essence into this. The shemesh does not have that element. It doesn't give something of its essence. What's made essence? It is, the light is representative of its essence. But the essential element of the essence is not occupied in this. Here is where we are challenged to understand, the subtleties of essence and the essential element of the essence.
What's the Hebrew for this? What's the Hebrew? What's the Lashon for this? These two things.
Minhu etzem. Coming back to the Moshel of the Rav. The Rav understands Seichel. Going back to when we said, Guv ha'oras sichloi. When we defined sichloi, his Seichel. And the emphasis over here is not Guv ha'oras ha'seichel, but Guv ha'oras sichloi. What does sichloi mean? His individual, his particular seichel. What does that mean? So we discussed then that the seichel harav is reflective and it's drawn from the rotzen harav. This seichel is actually representative and it comes from his rotzen. What is rotzen? Rotzen is really part and parcel, is representative of his essence. If you recall, we were saying what is the will of a human being? What is the primary will of a human being? Huh? To be human. That's his primary will. In other words, the fact that he is human is not a peripheral thing, and not by the way. He happens to be human. No. That is something which he fully appreciates. And he wants to be human. Not only does he want to be human, in case of the human being, we discussed it then, it's not only that he wants to be human, he wants to be this human being, him. That is what is recognized in his rotz. And all his seichel is a derivative of that rotz. He doesn't want to exchange with anybody anything. Like we spoke then, if you remember, the fools of trying to imitate, change their appearance, this is total stupidity. The cosmetic surgery and all that. Yeah, you look more beautiful to others, but to you don't recognize yourself. There's no way you can come to terms with yourself. You don't recognize it. This is not you. It's not your nefesh. The first thing is to recognize oneself. That's the first thing. Then you have a certain reality. What is in this reality? Again, as we spoke then, this is where the folly of the Darwinian thought process is. All he wants is to be. Never such a thing. He doesn't want to be, he wants to be what he is. Why does he want to be? What's the point in being? He wants to be what he is, because in this, what he is, this is where the Koyach Eliki has been vested. He is where he recognizes Elokus through what he is. There's a reality in this. This is why he wants to be himself. He wants to be this human being. From this essence of what he is comes his seichel. I'm sure, for those who did, who didn't, Chassidus explains, for example, that there was Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, it is known that they had many machlokes, many differences in halacha, in opinion. And generally speaking, Beis Shammai was always took the more strict attack, more strict line, and Beis Hillel were more lenient. So Chassidus explains, because the neshamas of Beis Hillel were rooted in Chesed, in Sfiras HaChesed, the Atzilus. The neshamas of Beis Shammai were rooted in Sfiras HaGvura, the Atzilus. Which is why they had these pronounced differences. There are only in 3 instances where Beis Shammai is Meikel and Beis Hillel is Machmir. Meikel and Machmir means more lenient and more strict. So, what does this mean? Does this mean that they simply accommodated their whim, their preference? No, this came directly from the truth of their soul. This was a Seichel Eliki. But the Seichel Eliki, because it came from their soul, that's why they could see it this way, and so they saw it this way. The Seichel is, sometimes we're not ready for this. We understand why Seichel comes from the Rotzen, not from the Oineg and not from the Etzem and so forth. But regardless, the Rotzen itself is also reflective of what they are, what the essence is. This is what Guv Haora Sich Loy, he is Seichel, which means that he is fully involved in this. Even to the extent that that two people who are both in the category of a Rav, the Gemara speaks about this, they give over the same Seichel, and they produce it in different words. You would think that these different words make them different because they're given the same Seichel. It makes a difference. But you have to have a very sharp ear, to see the difference, why this one is presented from this angle, this one is presented from this angle. But this is all very, very clearly, very sharply representative of Sich Loy, of his Seichel. Not just a Seichel. It makes sense. I can prove it. I said this morning, a Seichel that you can prove is not Seichel at all. That's a peripheral thing. A Seichel is an insight that only a living Seichel can understand. Anything that you can impart to a computer is not really a Seichel. It's a Chitzonius. Now we come to Oyer. So Oyer, as we shall still see, I'm preempting because everybody's going to. Oyer is represented, Bamish, what Shemesh is, but there is no core. Shemesh is what it is. Shemesh is not involved in being what it is. This is not a choice. It's not something that Shemesh creates of itself because it wants to be a Shemesh. It is what it is. This is Ashpos of Oyer. That's why you say Oyer is a Ha'or Levad. It means Ein Beho Etzem. The Etzem is not involved in producing this Oyer. One second. And this is why it's called Ha'or. What? Ashpos Ha'oyer is called Ha'or. It's not V, it's called Shafet. It's called Oyer. What happened? You sing yourself out. Give him some lessons, some voice lessons. What's going on here?
You have to come to me. I can't.
You can't do it over
I don't
a distance.
I don't solicit.
All right. So this was ha'orel. Maybe it is representative of it, but that's something else already. That's the chitzonius. That's the presence. That's the presence. Not him, not his choice, not his will, his direct involvement, a proactive involvement. That's probably the better way to put it. Okay? And this is why Eine Peil B'Shum Shinu Klal. What is Eine Peil B'Shum Shinu Klal?
Just a word from the front here, which is that the video is shutting off as soon as like 5 minutes goes by. I don't know if that's fixable.
Refresh your connection.
Yeah, I'm refreshing it, but I have to keep refreshing it because it doesn't stay on. I don't know why.
Sounds like a connection issue, unless they've throttled the account.
Okay, sorry.
Anyway, there's a recording.
Against the Etzem is not involved over there. It's just,
Automatic.
that's a peripheral thing. V'chein hu. Okay, we have one more wrong in this. Huh?
Yeah.
V'chein hu b'oy v'chayz hanefesh. This is even more difficult to and we have no understanding of b'oy v'chayz hanefesh. She'ein mutod bozeh. She'ein mutod bozeh. That it is not preoccupied with this. This is Chayz HaNefesh is, the Rebbe is saying it. I guess we are challenged to try to understand it to some degree, but really this is something which is quite remote from our seichel. Just as we spoke the other day about Oyer V'Ziv HaShemesh, the sunlight, there's an important principle that we're discussing all the time when we're talking about sunlight. Sunlight is a wonderful opportunity, an wonderful presentation, example of Oyer. But it requires a little bit attention, a little bit a finer recognition of what it is. Because on the Gashmisrike level, one would think sunlight is not even light; it's energy. Like we say, how does the eye see an object? The same way as a camera sees an object. If a camera doesn't see it, so what is Chayz have to do with anything? This is not any different than saying that if the computer can know the seichel and the human, so what's the seichel about? There's no life in it. So we explain it very clearly. No, that which the computer sees, that's not seichel. Even though the computer sees 1 and 1 is 2. So we went through the whole great effort to explain. That's not what we mean that the Rav is giving seichel to the Talmud. The same is true in the sunlight. What makes it light? Not that physical energy that deflects itself from the object that the camera can also see. Light is a very subtle, very spiritual presentation in the world. As we always point out, the first day of creation, light was created. Light is not the result of the sun being created. The whole concept and principle of light was created the first day of creation. And there it says, "Vayemer Elokim Yehiyoy, Vayemer Elokim is Oil Ki Toiv." Oil is Toiv. Oil is something very special. As a matter of fact, if you look in the Chumash more attentively, you'll find that when the Rebbe created the luminaries, the sun and the moon, it says, tell me if you can follow this, if not, I'll be more specific. Yehi me'oires b'ki hashamayim. This is the words of the pasuk. Yehi me'oires b'ki hashamayim. Let there be luminaries in the firmament of the heavens. Lahoyer al haaretz. Lahoyu. Let me take the Chumash. Oh. No. Yehi me'oires b'ki hashmayim l'havdil ben hayim u'ben halayla. There should be me'oires in the rakia to distinguish, to separate between day and light, day and night.
There should be.
Huh? L'havdil, to separate between the day and the night. Now, let's go weiter. V'hoyu lo'oisos, and they will represent signs. U'lemoyadim, and they will also represent and provide for the periods, for various periods, for the Yom Tovim that Eden will have. And they will provide the Yomim, they will provide a daily cycle. What is day? So Rashi says, the sun serves 1/2 a day, and the moon serves another half a day, and that creates a full day. Vishonim, and they provide for years, 665 cycles, that provides for a year. And then the next pasuk it says, only after that it says, "V'hoyu l'ma'oros." V'hoyu l'ma'oros, and there will be luminaries. Rashi says, listen to this. Oidzois, and in addition to all of these things, also Yishamshu, they will serve Shi'ayir Lo'il, that they will give light to the earth. What you think is the primary thing, he says, no, this is an additional thing. They will also provide light. They provide years, they provide a day and Yom Tovim and all that. The Hoyel Ma'oros, they will also give light. What is the significance? What is the point in this? The fact that they give light, this is actually like a secondary level, because light is not luminary dependent. Light is a creation unto itself. And the first 6 days of creation, during the first cycle, the first week, the light came directly from that godly light that Abishai created. Then afterwards, it was camouflaged. As I explained many times, it was camouflaged. It was associated with the luminaries, because that light, without the luminaries, would kind of cancel out a worldly quality. It's a completely take the world out of worldly parameters. So therefore, it was hidden in the luminaries. But what is the principle of light per se? I hope you can. I hope you pay attention, because this is, I said, this is the real effect of light. We always say, what is the message? What are we experiencing when we see light? Now I don't need a flashlight. I can go across the street and I see the street, and I can look across the street and I see what's going on. Morning.
No.
What is it?
Rise up. Be up.
So we explained the following. The sun, the light in association to the sun is quite different than the light as we have it. By us we have light, we have darkness, and the light is in contrast to the darkness. The sun, light in the sun, is not light that illuminates darkness, because in the sun there is no darkness. The sun does not recognize that there is such thing as darkness altogether. The sun is light through and through. As we always point out, if you have a candle, and the candle has a wick, and it has oil, and it burns, so the candle produces light through its fire and so forth, but it's not light through and through. There's a wick that's not light. The center of it is not light at all. The sun is light through and through. There is not a dark element from which this light comes from. As we point out all the time, it is not the consumption of fuel that gives off this light. It's light, that we should put light into it. This is the same light that was created in the first day of creation. And it was hidden in the sun. Because as we are observing the sun, we see just light. We don't see that the sun is burned up its fuel. Because if it were burning up its fuel, then we would see the sun reducing constantly its capacity. And it doesn't. Doesn't reduce the capacity. On the contrary, we're saying that there is global warming. After 5,000 years, the sun is first global warming. Because this light comes from an essential source, called an atzmi, an essential source of light, not from a light that's produced by activity, some kind of activity. When this is the great difference. When we see light, sunlight, we see a completely different element of light than we see candlelight. No matter how many candles. The impression that we have of sunlight is there is an essence of light, not an active effect of light that I can see. It's not the effect of light, we see the essence of light, that's what we see. Because we immediately associate it and we immediately recognize the sun is out. Not light is out. The sun is out, which means an essence of light is out. That is what impresses us. This is the godly gift to the world, that should be light. Not that you should be able to see. You'll be able to see by candlelight. But the Rebbe should create not that you should be able to see. Light, it contrasts to the opposite of darkness. It gives us a sense, during daytime, we have no idea that there is such thing as darkness altogether. And when darkness sets, it's always a shock. Oh, it's getting dark already. Don't you know that there's a cycle, it's going to get dark? No, but during the daytime, the darkness doesn't exist. Why? Because the sun is out. And it's an interesting thing that as long that's called Shkia Zacham or Netzacham. Netzacham, when the sun rises, sunrise does not mean that the entire ball of the sun is up. One sliver of sun changes the entire atmosphere. And as long as there's a sliver of sun on the other side, on the setting, it's still day. And you can't even imagine it's going to be dark mamish in half a minute. Because the whole concept of darkness doesn't exist. Of course, we know that there's a cycle. We know, looking at the clock, it's going to be dark. But in terms of experience, in terms of what the world experiences, there's no darkness. Because there is sun. This is the light that comes to us from the sun. So this light does not come for an effort, not by the effort of the sun, by the burning of fuel of the sun. This light is something which is an essential reality in the sun. So here is where we have seemingly contradictory terms, but then we will understand its real meaning. On the one hand, it seems, this is the essence of the sun. But this essence of the sun is what the sun is, not what the sun is trying to do for you. This is what the sun doesn't care whether you can take me, you can tolerate. Here I am. And this is why it transforms the entire atmosphere. It is not merely giving it a light or waiting for you to be able to digest it, like a Rav and a Talmud, and giving a Talmud a chance to digest it. It's nothing to do with it. There's no pneumistic thing. Completely eliminating the whole mitzvahs of the world. It's light, it's not dark. Period.
Pneumius could do that?
Huh?
Pneumius could not do that?
No, pneumius does not. Pneumius means you have to absorb it. Now we have to translate this into Oy B'chayis HaNefesh. The Nefesh gives life to the Guf. There are many different levels in this Chayis HaNefesh. All the way to the point where the Guf is able to act physically. There's a physical sensitivity. And like we say, Koyach HaNefesh, Seichel, Amidas, all kinds of different levels. All of these are already different levels. Just like in the sunlight, we have the light and we have the ability to see across the street. And we have pointed out the ability to see across the street is not the essential effect of sunlight, of sun. This is the light, the functional element of light. There's a function element of nefesh that we have seichel, we have midas, and so forth. But then there is a chayus, the essential, the element of life that the sun, that the life that the nefesh gives. Life, as we always point out, seichel can be active and inactive. You can be thinking, you cannot be thinking. You can be understanding, you cannot be understanding. And it comes, as you said, it's a result of rotzen and like all kinds of different things. But life does not have a limit. Life is absolutely constant. One moment that life is lacking, that's it, it's finished. There's no such thing. Life is representative of the actual presence of nefesh, not of a functional element of nefesh. Just like in the sun, sunlight is the essential truth of sun. That sun is light through and through. Is etzem atzmi is a bright and etzem behiri. So too, life, the life in a person, the life that the nefesh gives, is not the functional life. It is the essence of life. It is the fact that there is a nefesh in the school. Period. And a person is alive, even if, God forbid, functionally, there are problems and he doesn't have the functional element. The it's like a living entity. Why? Because there's a nefesh in it. This nefesh element, this living entity that the nefesh gives to the guf, is not through any kind of activity. In order that this seichel should function, the nefesh has to be mislabish in the brain, and the brain has to be imbued, has to be sensitive to the seichel, and so forth. The life element is totally unrelated to anything. As long as the nefesh is in the guf, there is a life in it. The life element is actually the presence of the nefesh in the guf. Just like the light, pure light element, is not the effect, but the presence of the sun in the atmosphere. The life element is the presence of the nefesh. There's no functional element. Functional element comes at the next rung, next level. There's Oyneg, Rotzen, and Seichel, and Midas. Therefore, the nefesh is not preoccupied in giving this chayes. It's the presence of the nefesh that makes this chayes. Just as the presence of the sun makes this light. So this is where we have this paradox. On the one hand, it's a representative of what the essence itself is. On the other hand, we say the essence is not involved. It's a little late, it's a lot late, but I must finish this. This is what we said before. Seichel comes from the Rotz. In other words, how does one understand Seichel? Because one recognizes this in Rotzen. He wants to be what the Eibishter made him. And from this comes Seichel. In other words, there's an essential recognition of the self that is the source of the Seichel. The recognition of the self. Sunlight does not come from the sun's recognition of the self. Oil Chayes HaNefesh does not come from the recognition of the self. It is the self itself. There is not a self-recognition. you would think that the self itself is superior to self-recognition. Not true. Self-recognition is superior to the self itself. Why? Because self-recognition, I have to finish it, we can debate it tomorrow. The self-recognition, like we said before, why does a human being want to be a human being?
That's his essential will.
What?
That's his essential will.
That's his essential will. Why? Because this is where he connects to the Eibushin. This is where the godly element is recognized. This is the truth that was given to him. I said this is where the Armenian it becomes purple garbage. He doesn't just want to be. He wants to be the godly truth that was imbued in him. This is what God wanted him to be. This is what he wants to be. So this is where his connection to his Creator is. This is where he is for real. Does anybody follow this? At least if you hear it once in a lifetime, it's also worth it.
Most people want to be animals.
So the nefesh is not mutrad in the chayas. Is the nefesh mutrad in the seichel or anything after the chayas? You're not addressing that.
No, that's not the nefesh.
Oh.
It's the person
Oh.
there. That's
Self-recognition is superior to...
Self-recognition is superior to the self because self-recognition comes as a result of recognizing his Creator.
What is the term we would use in Lashon HaKodesh for self-recognition?
Ratzon Atzmi.
Rotzen Atzmi.
All right, this is it for this, this evening.
And that's all. And also only humans can have this. Only human beings can have.
I think only human beings in Crown Heights can have this. Most people want to be animals, if not machines.
Yo, yo.